Okay, makes sense. Well, I don't know what to say, folks, because we're 5 minutes past my deadline of starting the meeting. I've opened the door, and I don't know if well, does anyone have something they want tackled and some
Actually,
problems?
Stefanie had a request regarding, I think it was a cookie consent plugin. And
yeah,
so
that's correct.
If I might, by way of a bit of introduction, just mention that earlier today, Richard and I were chatting on the phone, and I said to him, one of the tough things to do in this kind of a session, like a site clinic or help me session, is really properly understanding the problem, or in more sort of technical terms, it's really defining the requirements of the situation. And so, in fact, this particular question of cookie compliance, at first blush, would seem very straightforward. You just hop over to the plugin registry, pop in cookie or cookie compliance even, look for the most popular one, check to see that there's nothing really bad in the technical support forum, maybe Google that particular plugin, just the name, to see if people have gone crazy about it in the last 2 weeks, or something bad's happened. And if all that looks fine, pop the plugin in, try it out, and then learn from that experience whether it does all the things you want, or some of the things you want, or none of the things you want. But taking a step back from that, by way of the context, there are actually a fair number of different things that come into play with this notion of cookies and compliance. The larger topic is privacy. And so when you're dealing with cookies, does that include compliance with whatever provincial, federal, or state privacy requirements there are? Do they comply? Do you need to comply with the data handling requirements of something like the GDPR? Are you going to sell potentially, if you have an e-commerce site, you're going to sell in Quebec, which just, I think it was yesterday or today or in the last few days, passed a new privacy law. If you were to simply start off, as I did a few minutes ago, best cookie compliance plugin for WordPress at Google, the first hit that comes up is a 2020 article from WP Beginner, and that blog's pretty reputable. It may be a little stale, being 2020, but this isn't that fast moving a field. So they're quite reputable guys to look at. There's also in the top 3 a post from Torque magazine, and I would rate them a little higher technically. And so from those 2 posts, you will find the list of questions that you would ask yourself. Do I need this feature? Do I need that feature? How simple are my requirements? Or how much money is at stake? Or how much risk am I running by the choice I make of this particular compliance requirement? And so there isn't really, to me, an answer, it's plugin X. Although, in fact, most of the most popular plugins are quite capable. And you wouldn't be wrong picking one of them. But the question of which of several to choose from, it really depends on the answers to those questions that I raised before, which are only a sample of the sorts of issues that come up when this question arises. This plugin is a little different, or at least this requirement is a little different in that apart from the usual things like, does the plugin, can I work this plugin, operate its controls and so on, but it's just that there's an extensive list of potential features that plugins will support to one extent or another. And there's really no substitute for figuring those out yourself. If you could find somebody who had exactly the same circumstances as you have, same sort of site, same experience level, same technical capabilities, same part of the world, down the block, so to speak, just taking a recommendation and going ahead and implementing it may well be the most economical approach. But you got to find that person who you trust who's in comparable circumstances, blah, 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 blah. Because you're relying on them having, in effect, done their due diligence. Like, you could call it that, due diligence, in the sense that, know your plugin if you're planning on using that to comply with some requirement somebody external to you is imposed on you. So does that give you an orientation, and does that make sense, Stefanie?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. Of course, I would take a look at the plugins to see if it would meet my needs based on where my client was based and what privacy issues and everything that they would want to comply with. I have looked at some of the ones from WP.blog, and I have to say that the first one that they recommend was absolutely horrible. So I was like, oh, I was just curious.
Which blog was that?
The WP beginner blog, I believe.
Right, the 2021?
I think that's what it is. Yeah, and it was the cookie. I can't remember the plugin, but I installed it, and it just looked horrible on the site. And, of course it's free. I don't have a problem paying for a plugin, but when I look at the free one and it's that poorly done, I'm like, oh, okay, forget that. I'm going to just push over. I was just curious to see, what are other people using? Are they happy with it? And then I would take a look at those ones and see if they meet my needs and my clients' needs. That's all. So I was just curious what everybody else is using.
Drew, as far as cookie compliance goes?
I used to use the WPMU dev plugin called Branda, that does about 150 different things, including cookie compliance. I have since removed that, and I actually don't do a cookie notice now because I don't have any European clients. And one of the, I don't recall which one it was, but I did recall seeing one of the cookie banner plugins that would specifically activate if the visitor came from a European Union nation. And so it didn't have to bother everybody else with the EU cookie law.
Can I ask a question? When I first started doing websites a long time ago, the internet was very slow and they used cookies because it was so slow, you lose, But then once everything started to speed up and then all the new stuff, you got rid of cookies because they were just a hassle. Like, why would you use them? And now they're back. I'm trying to figure out, we were so happy to get rid of them. Mind you, that was probably in the 90s.
We are in the process of getting rid of them, much to the unhappiness of Facebook and the other social media companies. Google's forcing this down their throats.
And Google, when Google came around,
but they haven't actually started that in any serious way yet. So all of our machines are stuffed with literally thousands of cookie files.
Yeah, Dale, I think what you're thinking of is cache. Cache is something that was used to improve speed. Cookies are for a different purpose. Cookies are to store.
And they don't represent anything significant in overhead. I mean, they're just tiny little files with, a bunch of numbers in them. And so the internet can handle like 1 billion of those a nanosecond. It's what computers do better than anything else, is handle and process little chunks of plain ordinary numbers.
Yeah, cookies are there to store essentially personal, what they call state information about you, like your login status and your preferences and stuff like that for a particular site. So, for example,
I know what you mean. Yeah,
if you log into a site and it remembers your login ID the next time you log in, that's stored in a cookie.
And that made it faster.
Or is the cookie
and then you get in there faster. It used to be you get in there faster.
Secure that has this date. I mean, the login, like cookies aren't particularly secure, are they? I mean, I didn't think the actual login data was inside the cookie file.
Well, your login, your password certainly isn't. it's going to store on your computer. It's going to store a thing called a hash, which is just essentially a random number, which they then match up with something on the server.
So do we need cookies, or because I don't particularly want them?
They're very handy for advertisers. That's their big use nowadays, is to basically track what people do on websites so that they can serve up relevant ads.
Well, so actually there's
cookies as well. You can selectively
There's
allow or not allow cookies by site. And part of the reason for that is that there are a number of sites which will not function properly unless you have a cookie from them. It's just the way they're designed to work. And
yeah, so think about this.
Over time,
when you log into your website,
stop using that technique because it won't work anymore. The browsers will not process the cookies. But this change in cookie usage to take out of the hands of the advertisers in this fashion is what the big advertisers are, of course, fighting back on. But Apple has joined the fray and is doing something similar for the Mac world and the iPhone world by preventing advertisers from accessing the advertiser ID for the phone, which they came to depend upon as better than a cookie. And so that's being cut off already. It's taking place in part, and it will become accelerate a lot in the new year. But in any event, those techniques are falling by the wayside because of the privacy concerns. And so the surveillance of us as people, individuals, and all of our literally thousands of attributes will be done by other means. And they're going to still do it, but it won't be quite so ugly or quite so easy to do as it is now. So they're sort of killing off the Wild West and trying to bring in some things that seem to be more readily controllable and fundamentally which the user has some agency in regard to them. I.e., if I want to completely close off any form of personalization in advertising, I should be able to flip a switch and it happens, is the theory that we're working towards. And then all the degrees below that you can think of.
Robin?
Eric?
Robin?
Yeah.
I don't think you picked up on it, but twice already someone tried to say something and you talked right over them, and I don't know if your volume's not up there, but you're not necessarily hearing. And I'm thinking also, for the sake of moderation, can we limit how much we talk so we're not monopolizing the conversation? And can those who want to put in, have a say or have their own 2 cents, could you please use raise your hand under the actions? You can raise your hand, and then people can, and then who's moderating? I guess
I'm the one moderating the meeting.
Okay, if you're moderating, maybe you can assign for people to talk.
Let me respond.
Sorry, now you're interrupting me. And really, honestly, I think what we need to do is show a little more respect, because Drew was overshadowed and so was Eric. So if we raise our hands and then we're given a minute or two, and then if you don't mind shutting people down or saying, okay, let's let someone else talk, and let people raise their hands, please.
Okay, thank you for your suggestion and thank you for your input. And as moderator, I was watching what people were saying and how they were talking. And since no one seemed to be interested or wanting to say anything, I couldn't tell that if anyone wanted to add anything. I let Robin speak because he was explaining something. I also had Drew on my list of coming back to finish his train of thought when he started off with cache and with the cookies. Okay, So I am aware of what's going on. Thank you for your input, and I'll try to be a little more direct in my response and direction of everyone on the site. However, and I do appreciate your words about everyone respecting other people. I don't mean to be critical of anyone, and I don't mean to chastise, and I hope I don't sound that way. However, if someone wishes to speak, they should be allowed to. And if no one else has something else to say, that person should be allowed to speak longer. Phil, go ahead.
Two things. One, could you put your name in there? Because I'm too new to know your name, and you just have WordPress Toronto Organizer. Also, could you moderate and observe the chats? Because I think Eric got offended because he was trying to say something and couldn't. And you're saying that you're watching this, and I think even watching this, things can be overlooked. But Eric's left a comment in the chat because he recognized that he was trying to say something and it got totally washed out. Eric, at the same token, it would be nice if you raised your hand, and then if we all did that, then we wouldn't be able to overstep each other. Thank you.
Yeah, Phil, thank you again for your input. And I did address Eric at the very beginning of our session. I asked him if his mic was turned on or could he turn it on, and he was in the middle of something in his kitchen. He responded. So thank you for reminding of me of these things, and it makes my job far easier when I find that people are giving me constructive and positive advice. I hope that was your intention. I take it that way anyway. But you know, people, when you put up your hand, as being an old retired teacher, I like the hand like this so I can see it like that. If you forget putting it on electronically, it stays on my screen, and I don't know that. Now, I don't want the floor. I'm not trying to interrupt or take the stage. Please, this is for helping people out who have difficulty with their sites. So folks, the floor is open to that. And I will try to do a better job moderating. But remember, I am new to this kind of position, and I'm doing it with a lot of heart. Maybe not enough experience, but I'll get better at it with your help and your cooperation too, if I might add. The floor is open to anyone who's got a WordPress problem. Notice I didn't say a problem. Stefanie, hello.
Hi, I just wanted to comment also that, yes, while we're going to move into a cookie-less world soon, at this time, we still have to be compliant with regards to collecting information from people. So that's why I was asking. And Dale, just so you know, if you have Google Analytics on your website, technically you're collecting data from people, and that's one of the reasons that I want to ensure that I have the cookie policy. And I do have people from California coming to my website, and therefore I have to be compliant with CCPA. So that's what I was looking for. And just out of, if you guys care, the plugin that I had installed was Cookie Notice for GDPR and CCPA. But it was a very clunky looking cookie, and I personally don't want to put that on my site. So I was just hoping that somebody in this group had some suggestions, but I guess that because you're all dealing with maybe Canadian sites where you don't have people coming in from anywhere else in the world, that's not an issue for you at this time. So I'm good to go to another topic. Thank you so much. Thanks for addressing it, Robin. And Phil, I appreciate that. And Drew, thanks.
Thank you, Stefanie.
Yeah, thank you,
those, Stefanie, were, I think, good points that you were making in regard to being aware, you know, if you have California customers, then another set of requirements arises, and it doesn't match up exactly with European or, you know, other jurisdictions. So you are smart to pay attention to those details, because that will make the difference between sort of a good solution and just get the job done, but not necessarily the right way.
Phil, go
That's
ahead.
good.
Thank you.
Phil?
So my understanding of compliance from the stuff that I do with our website, because I'm involved with security and in the physical nature, one of the things I take very seriously is how we comply with things on the internet also. And while I respect, Stefanie, that you're saying that, you know, some people may or may not have, I think what we all have to understand and recognize is that if you have a website that you may have, always you may have somebody from another place. So if you're taking your due diligence, which you seem to be, that's great. I think the danger that we forget isn't the compliance we try to do. It's the due diligence if we don't make sure that we don't have an issue with the cookie, whether it's a plugin or what we do with cookies on our end, or what our host is doing with anything that we bring down. So going back to what Robin's saying, and what I get out of the whole aspect of the GDPR and the whole Euro or international period cookie issue is every site, not every site, many sites ask permission for cookies. Someone clicking on yes, I accept cookies does not mean that they're accepting that their information then gets used in a malicious or a wrongful way. And so my take on it is that we need to always be aware of what our plugins are doing and who else is accessing it. And Stefanie, you're right. If you're using Google Analytics, there's a very good chance that somehow your site might be using using cookies in a way that you're not aware of and you don't have control over. And so our statement on our website is a fairly broad but very comprehensive statement that says anything that we have control over is limited to what we have control over, but not that we can't be liable for what third party or hosting or Google, for instance, does with the information that gets collected inadvertently through us, because we won't purposely share, sell, or take advantage of the information. And I think that's an important thing, is making sure your statement is clear.
I recall a plugin, one feature of which I thought was noteworthy, in that it scanned to find in your plugins any that would generate or handle a cookie, and then would flag that so that even if you weren't aware of it in any direct way, you would nonetheless be compliant, in that the compliance plugin would know about it and include it in the disclosure to the customer before they accepted the cookie or allowed the cookie to be used. And I don't recall seeing that ability in other plugins, so I don't know whether that's a common attribute, but it seems to potentially apply to the circumstances you just referred to, where things may be going on that you're not directly aware of. And so you try to blanketly exclude responsibility, but that may be something to consider. This other thing may be something to consider.
Thank you, Robin.
What you can do, and I've been doing this for years, is have a privacy policy page on the website that says that my client, or we're not collecting stuff that, you know, not going out there trying to collect personal information from people. So, and I've done that for years. I just thought that was normal.
Dale, do you have Google Analytics? Dale, do you have Google Analytics attached to your website?
No.
Oh, okay.
Does your host collect analytics for you?
I don't know. Not that I know of.
There are some hosts that do that or provide that to you. So that may be something just to be aware of.
No, I haven't. No, I'm still. Go ahead.
I think that the difference is that you're not giving people a choice in that case. Like, you're saying this is what our policy is, but what my understanding is, people should have the ability to not be tracked at all. So you may or may not be tracking anybody on your website. You may not know what's being tracked.
Yeah, but we are not purposely doing it. Exactly what you say. Yeah, you're right. But I don't have anything there.
That doesn't matter anymore. Like, that's,
well, yeah, but if it's not me,
So Dale, I've got a question. Do you accept comments on your form on your website?
No.
No comments. Do you have a contact form?
Yeah.
Okay. You're collecting data. Do you use a Kismet?
No.
reCAPTCHA?
Nope.
Do you sell anything?
Nope.
Does your server collect data logs of who's accessed your website?
I have no idea because they don't.
Do. Every
Okay.
host tracks who visits a website, so everybody needs a privacy policy. You want your host to track who visits your site so that if there's a problem, you can fix it. Another thing you need to be aware of is just the simple fact of hitting your website. Somebody's setting a cookie to say that they've seen that cookie notice. They're setting a cookie to say that they've actually logged in, submitted contact forms. So no matter what you do, every website is setting a lot of data. So privacy policies are a necessity. Even
Eric,
if
a question you
we're
mentioned
not
about server
trying to-
logs.
Hang on, Robin. Let him finish. Hang on, Robin. I'll come back to you in a second. Go ahead, Eric. Finish.
I was just saying, even if we're not trying to collect it, there's a lot that our host is going to automatically collect by the nature of the operating system.
Okay.
But I don't
Robin?
control that. I don't put a special program myself on there, and neither does my client. We don't go out and get a special thing that we can take your information. If someone else does it, I don't have control over that. But I'm not doing it.
Correct.
Eric, by your words, are you suggesting that the website manager should have control of that and should get involved in controlling it?
Yes, in a broad sense. What I'm saying is you go to the host of your choice. I don't care who it is, GoDaddy, WP Engine, HostGator, whatever.
Yeah.
And you're running an operating system. The host provides that, and they have logging for your purposes if you need to look at it. So it's being collected, IP addresses, timestamps, and what they've accessed. If you call out in your privacy policy that says, yeah, our server collects this, it stores it for X number of days, but we don't sell it, you're covered.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know.
Dale, does that help you out? It sounds.
Yeah, but
to me like,
I don't know. Like, how would I ever find out? And
if I can paraphrase, Eric, you help me out if I paraphrase incorrectly. What I think you're saying to us is, if we run a website, we should have control of those kind of things, even if our server is logging it and keeping it. But we should be involved in it ourselves if we are commercialized.
Not necessarily. You just need to be aware that the data is being collected and let your end user know.
Oh, well, Dale? Okay.
sure. On my privacy policy, it says that we don't, myself and my client, but that it is collected at other places that can be used for police or for criminal, activity, whatever, for whatever's needed, should things be needed. But that I don't have a thing saying, hey, you're here and I'm collecting for you, or my client is not purposely going out and taking your information. I have no control over the rest that they do, as you said, as you're saying they do. That doesn't surprise me. Seems to me that would be due for a security thing, isn't it? Should something happen?
Yeah, absolutely. It's there for security and for troubleshooting.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I just had one of my hosting companies got super hacked, and that was just amazing. And websites, it was just a nightmare for days. And they backed up stuff, and they went in and did it, and they worked hard, and they just managed. But it was somebody, I think, that was their main competition because of the way they got hacked. Most hackers like to go in and just hack, right? And hey, I'm a great hacker. These guys went in and by they back up. They have a backup place where all their backup goes. That got attacked first, And then they went after the main hosting. I'm sorry, I can't remember words tonight. I've had a rough day. So, and then they went after the other. So like, they couldn't say, oh, you hacked this, I'm just going to grab a backup, because they went after the backup first. It was really, really done differently. And it sounded like somebody knew exactly what they were going after to get to attack the servers for this hosting company.
Dale, what hosting company was it?
Web Hosting Canada.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah, they even set up another server so that if you wanted to immediately get your something up there now, you could. But it was unbelievable. But they went in there. I don't know how they did it. I sincerely don't know.
I often wonder if sometimes these things might be an inside job by a disgruntled employee.
Yeah, something like that, because they went after the servers that had the backups first. And then they went after the main servers that had the websites. And so it was just, now a couple of the servers they didn't go after. And so it was, but it took them a while, but yeah, they did. And they rescued everything. And I don't know how they did it. They did a miracle. But they even had another server going to help people if their stuff was really damaged and couldn't. So, but it was, I'll tell you, and most of my clients are there now. So it was a really terrified experience, but they did it. I don't know how they fixed it all. I don't know. I don't care. I just, we're so happy that they did all that, made sure everybody had everything, and it helped you when you needed it.
Good.
No
Service. Okay, Phil, go ahead.
I see a comment from Eric. Eric, are you a web dev? Is that what you are? Am I understanding that you use that plugin WP Security Audit Log for sites that you develop?
Well, I do maintenance, I develop sites, and I run, I've got a few of my own sites.
Oh.
But I run this on all of my sites because it allows me to track things and gives me better compliance, PCI compliance for stores, GDPR compliance, CCPA, and I'm here in the States. Colorado and Virginia just passed laws. If you're outside the States, Australia's got a major one that's comparable to GDPR. So for my security and peace of mind, I track everything that happens on my website. I tell people that I track everything on my website, and I store it forever.
Eric, I wonder why an audit log plugin would provide compliance. I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you're saying is with the data that I get from this plugin, I can then make compliance decisions of some sort.
No, for PCI compliance, when you're actually running e-commerce, you have to track what happens on the site.
No, no, I appreciate that, but in terms of cookie compliance, which has been our topic.
Well, so cookie compliance goes into the hand with everything else.
Okay. Huh.
I'm trying to see what I use. I don't even know.
It's an interesting point, Eric, that you brought up about server logs, because by way of fun little facts, web server logs are really how the sort of data revolution began. They produced such a fire hose stream of data that there were no tools that could process that information. And as the web grew in the early days, guys are just going nuts with logs for little tiny sites that would throw off 500,000 records at a whack and completely overwhelm their tools. And so the whole data science sort of process in part began with the impetus of all that free data and what could we make of it and how could we process it and what insights would it lead us to. And so something as trivial as a website visit can be the genesis then of Facebook's advertising empire based on user data from visits around the internet. I mean, the two are the same thing. They differ in terms of their vastness. from the early to the late days of the current days of the internet.
Seems my site uses the same audit log that Eric's got. Just as a point of interest. But I agree with what Robin. Sorry, Eric. I agree with what Robin was saying, that it's more a matter. Compliance is really more a matter of what you do with it. Having it is one thing, and requiring it for people is another. And people can always opt out when they surf onto your site by refusing. And they can also run software on their computers that stops them. They can also use software on their computers like VPNs that mask where you're even coming from. Anyway, you were going to say something, Eric, and I think I cut you off.
No worries. I was just going to say that WP White Security has some wonderful tech support. And that's why I went with the plugin originally.
I went because it's what my web dev put on there.
So now I got to go check out something. You're causing me more work, guys. Now I got to go check out something else.
But Dale, that's all.
It's called job security.
As you learn more, you've got to do more.
I know.
I honestly think that this is a good general topic for general discussion, because we don't always talk about these kinds of things. And I really believe that we need to have that, as Robin so aptly put it, we really have to have the due diligence, or practice the due diligence, and you can't bury your head in the sand. The worst case scenario, I mean, on a best case scenario, nothing happens, who cares? You got information that you have no idea how it's being used, and you really don't care, and nobody's getting hurt, or at least nobody is intentionally getting hurt on your behalf. But on the worst case scenario, I think the thing we have to be aware of is data theft and data misuse can put ourselves in a libelous position. And although Canada isn't quite as not litigious, is that the right word? It is?
Litigious.
Okay. Litigious as the States, as Eric deals with. We still have to deal with this, because there are powers that be that could blacklist websites for the sake of misuse if you know how to report a site. You know what I mean? So I think we have to be aware of it.
I'd like to comment, but if anybody else wants to speak first, go ahead.
By silence,
I think from
you're
a very
good to
practical
go.
point of view, and that's not always recommended. There's a trade-off between sort of being in compliance early in the game and extensively and broadly, so that anybody from anywhere in the world who lands is properly looked after, on the one extreme, and then ignoring these rules on the other. That where the trade-off is that over time, as these requirements become part of the normal routines, then things become incorporated into the core, WordPress core, like the privacy notice section that was added, simply because now it's what everybody needs. So therefore provide it in a simple, transparent fashion. And I think we'll see plugins become available to do this job well and give us very little grief, and have the characteristics of a page builder to help you with things like notices and forms and displays of one thing or another, that right now you got to hack away at individually in every plugin. But that simply, as requirements apply to more and more people uniformly, in this case, hundreds of millions, so too will the ease of use of the services and products that meet them. And right now it's awkward and a pain in the ass, and we don't even know, for example, how the EU is going to enforce the GDPR. There are major questions about, its workability. You comply, but it's a moving target. And so there are lots of issues out of Europe in that regard. But 3 or 4 years from now, I suggest that those will have settled compliance will be much more straightforward. Now, that doesn't address Stefanie's issue that, well, we need to comply now because there are e-commerce or state requirements or whatever. But I'm just saying from a strategy point of view over a longer period of time, looking at the way WordPress works, these things tend to get incorporated and simplified in the process, thankfully. I mean, just not so long ago, we couldn't edit anything realistically other than content, you know, the post content. And now we're looking at full site editing. So, I mean, it's revolutionary things happen.
If I could add to what you're saying, Rob, and I think that it used to be things of the web and the internet and having websites were always left up to professionals who would develop your site for you. But WordPress has come a long way, and so have a lot of other forms that allow us to do so much more with a website. And now things like compliance becomes an issue because of abuse that happens on occasion. So, I mean, our site, in our policy, we list the things that we do, but we also list what we don't do. And for our purposes, we're a locksmith association. We do have to track certain people. We do want to be on top of who's using our site and when. We have a forum. We can't not track because we have to be sure that information we share is shared with professionals with a like mind and like ethics. In the same token, we have to let them know that what we don't do is use that information for anything other than internal compliance, and that we won't sell or misuse the information. So I don't know what you were saying, Robin, about how you think it's going to disappear. I don't know how.
No, I'm not saying it. I'm really saying the opposite. I'm saying it'll become so prevalent and ordinary and everyday a requirement that it will be incorporated in the tools by the vendors and not require us to go out there and figure it out and choose from 57 different plugins, many of whom have deficient features, right? But as all things tend to in technology, as the volume goes up, you know, the features improve, the usability increases, the price falls. And so I'm just saying, applying that same thinking process to this compliance aspect, with the two tidal waves at work. One is, you know, regulating the use of information of individuals, you know, that are on the internet. And the other is the limitations on the use of data for advertising purposes that will exist apart altogether from the internet. But those two forces are sort of at work and well underway. And so hopefully it's better for us all as individuals personally, but also for those people who operate sites. It's just a headache that sort of gets relieved over the course of time by the progress overall in the way that, you know, so many things in WordPress that once were complicated and difficult have now become simple and straightforward and easy for the DIY guys to use as well as, you know, early stage developers and so on. Does that make it a little clearer, the point that I was making?
Yeah, no, I think so. I just thought you said earlier on in your conversation that you think that cookies are going to be...
No, cookies as an advertising device, as an advertising mechanism, are planned for obsolescence by Google. And Google's got this other way of trying to satisfy advertisers, being the world's second largest advertising vendor, right? It says we can give you this personalization with a technique that doesn't involve using individuals' personal information.
Yeah, I'd like to see how that works.
Well, there are complaints that it's really not all that private. It's this cohort idea that instead of you being an individual with 900 attributes, right, you'll be part of a cohort that has 899 of them in common.
Okay.
And that way you're not targeting Joe Blow, you're targeting Joe Blow's cohort of 1,000.
That I could see that working. In the meantime, how come every time I mention something like widgets, all of a sudden on my Facebook feed, I start seeing ads for widgets? I don't even have to search for them on the internet. I just have to say it out loud, and my little Alexa picks it up and
Do you
says,
find that creepy?
"Oh, I just think you want to start seeing widgets now."
How do you like? How does that strike you? Does that
Oh, it's
creep you
awful,
out?
isn't it? Awful and nice at the same time sometimes. I mean,
would you ever look up a health question?
Double-edged sword.
I mean, would you look up a health problem that you're having on Google?
Yes, I have.
I have.
Really?
Absolutely.
Don't you feel a little creepy that so many people know about your health problem?
Yes and no.
I mean, it might cost 5 cents to buy your health records.
Or less.
The issue, I'm not in the same boat as a lot of people. The hats I wear kind of preclude me from having even a private life. And I've come to accept the fact that I'm out there and I'm always going to be out there. And anybody Googling me, they're going to see me and they're going to see everything I'm involved in. I just have to be extreme. I mean, it's almost like when you get into politics, you can't say as a politician or as a superstar that you really have privacy anymore. And I think the same thing happens in certain aspects of life. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm starting to find that I'm just out there and I can't hide from that. I just have to be careful. Eh?
Be careful. Look.
This is a philosophical discussion that I can get into, okay? And I'll get into it this way. If I'm searching for information about my medical records or something, not my medical records, but I say a diagnosis or symptoms or something like that, I'm going to use Google. If somebody wants to see that I'm looking at that information, that's okay with me. I warn people that what they should be doing is monitor your bank account, monitor your emails, monitor your information regularly. It's like one lady that who was not very internet savvy at all many years ago, and she said to me in the morning at breakfast, every morning she would look at her bank account online to see if everything was in order. And she said it took her maybe 2-3 minutes to do that, and every day she walked away from breakfast table feeling peace of mind. So I'm like Phil, I'll go to the Google and I will look at information, but I'll also watch whatever way I can as to how the information is being, say, abused rather than used. I think
the best thing I've heard about this is that if you look up your symptoms on Google, you'll find the disease that has the best SEO.
Or the diagnostics or the remedy will be the best SEO, right?
If the doctor begins to explore, give him enough time or her enough time, she'll find a problem.
I've just put a link up in the chat window that's to a site that you can subscribe to. Yeah. And whenever there's a data breach, and in the data breach, your email is included, it will send you an email saying you're part of the 50 million records. Your email address was found in the 50 million records that Transamerica lost out of the back of its truck, or the 10,000 subscribers to Joe Blow's blog or whatever. And I subscribe to it, and the volume's relatively low, once every 3 or 4 weeks. And sometimes it'll be a big site and sometimes it'll be a little site, but this particular guy is quite clever, and it's an excellent service for what it's worth.
So I do have a suggestion, and one thing to be aware of. There are other sites like this that have a very similar domain name, where they ask you to put in your password to find out if it's been compromised. Please never do that. I would recommend using a password manager. Most of them have this service built in, so you don't have to. So like me, where I use a different email address for every website, my password manager knows what my email addresses are, and it just tracks what user accounts I've got and tells me if that service has been hacked that I've got, so I don't get the extra noise.
Which service is this?
I use LastPass, but 1Password will work, Dashlane, Bitwarden, all of them have a very similar feature built in.
Yeah.
I must not have turned it on because I have I've been a 1Password customer for half a dozen years. And I I get the notices from I've been pawned, but not from 1Password. Anyway, I'll check that out.
I think I'm in the camp of ignorance is bliss. I don't know if I've been hacked somewhere or if I've been pawned or conned or whatever. I just look at it. I'm not working anymore. I'm retired. I monitor my bank accounts. I'm online online for banking, and all I hear are people saying you shouldn't be online for banking. You shouldn't trust it. Well, if you monitor it frequently, regularly, I don't see a problem. And also, there are some insurances that different financial institutions have that will ensure that you don't lose your money. But hey, you do the best you can, and that's it.
For my 2 cents worth, I would say that, you know, my particular bank account is secure enough for me. It really doesn't require daily or any checking in that regard. There is deposit insurance, but more than that, it's just simply the bank's reputation is worth an awful lot to it in security terms. And so if your account is hacked, I think that you're likely to have the money just put back into the account by the bank.
I don't worry about 20 cents. Or maybe it was $2 last time I looked. I don't remember. I'm sorry. I sound like I'm being glib or flippant. That's not what I'm being. I'm saying I don't have enough. If you tried to hold me ransom for $1 million, sorry, you'd have to just shoot me because I haven't got $1 million.
Well, I've been banking online for years because I lived in Nowhere, Ontario for a while. So, I mean, there was maybe one branch once you got to town. So when I got to Toronto, hey, you got banks. So, and then I went online and I just stayed there, but I never had a problem. I mean, touch wood.
Phil, let me just make a comment and then very quick. Remember this, we can make a mountain out of any molehill. Go ahead, Phil.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think I count myself in with maybe not the earliest of adapters or adopters, but probably within the high numbers of or low number of early year adopters. Maybe in the 10th, maybe I'm not a year one, but definitely by year 10, I was definitely starting to do the online stuff, and I owe that to my wife. But I've now, because of my security consciousness and what we do and what I do for my business, I've become more and more aware of not just the issue of whether or not I use password managers, which I agree, Rob and everybody, that's really good, the important thing to have. Eric, I think that's a huge thing. Everybody should have that. But understanding good practices, and then also being aware of the fact that the slightest mistake you make opening an email can put your livelihood and your life in absolute turmoil because of the malware that's out there that you don't know about. And even while you're doing your due diligence, checking an account or whatever, if you have been hacked on your computer, you don't know what's being shared. So the only question I have for you, Richard, is if your bank account went to zero overnight, would it be the end of the world for you, or is it something where you're okay because of other things happening and other means? In which case, then you're in a better position than many. I think for the rest of us, or me anyway, if my account ever got hacked, I would be in such deep doo-doo because I'm constantly using it for work because I'm active, right? I'm active as a tradesman. I can't afford to have my accounts hacked. It would be an absolute pure hell. So
I appreciate what you're saying. I will add this to what you're saying. In my case, I just have not put all my eggs in one basket. I have my investments, my money distributed in different areas so that if one thing did get, it'd be difficult for you to get to all my stuff, but if I'm going to stay awake all night worrying about it, well, what can I say? As I said before, ignorance is bliss, but I'm not saying that as readily as it sounds. I do take as many precautions as I can. So I monitor my accounts. I use LastPass as a password manager. It drives me nuts anyway, but I have multiple email accounts. I do what I can. And I listen to people like in this forum here. When you people are skilled in this area, and therefore you have things that you can teach the rest of us. And it's good to hear you talk about it, even if it just draws my attention to it. I may not understand everything, but I am becoming more and more aware because of people like you.
Yeah, and I think some of us are more susceptible than others. I have, I think, six emails that I get on my phone, accounts that I get on my phone for the different things I do. And I have on my password software, let me just see here real quick. I think I've got probably 150 or more sites that I have passwords for. Yeah, so over 150. So it didn't become a critical thing for me until a few years ago, but having a BlackBerry and having it built into the BlackBerry, it prompted, and now I save everything there, and I try to keep different passwords for everything, but I try not to memorize them. And it's like having one pass. Sorry,
I think
Robin?
Those are two really key points that Phil's made. One is in regard to reusing passwords, which I started out doing and then caught on, fairly soon. So one password was part of the solution to that. But I found that certain kinds of projects and developing an application, for example, seems to be one of them. Just throw off login credentials like they were snowflakes. And so my one password has something like 1,100 or maybe even it's 1,200 records now, because I can get 25 out of just one project. By the time you have developers, you have testers, you have clients, you have, a variety of cloud services, could be easily a half a dozen or more, and you have multiple identities on those. And so that's the issue. It's not so much the passwords, it's multiple identities. You, Phil, have a variety of identities for your work and other things you do. And so the sophistication of the password managers has arisen to meet this need. And so I let 1Password generate all my passwords, and I use word sections. And that's because I read an article in an authoritative blog that said password length was more important than the randomness of the characters. So 8 random characters is not as good a password as a 24-character password made up of words.
Yeah.
And so that's a pretty key point. And the other is that I try to customize my email address, certainly for every subscription or site registration, so that practically speaking, in email, I can filter the stuff that comes in, and I don't have to sort of designate where it's to go or what tag it's to get. It gets it automatically from the filtering process. And also that if my address starts turning up in strange places, I can look at it and say, oh, well, that's the subscription X. I'm going to cancel that, and and every other use of that particular customized variant. And so that's part of managing your identities.
Can I jump in here and ask you people, let's just get a little, what's the word, consensus here. It sounds to me like this group, this meetup group, should have topics of discussion. And you see, like this one here, we got into this accidentally, and it's worthwhile hearing from various people what they advise or what they do to minimize the risk that they have. So my question to you is, should we be putting out topics or themes to discuss? So saying something like, next month, we're going to talk about security. And if somebody has a WordPress problem, then we let that take priority. But if they don't, we open up this kind of discussion. What do you think, folks?
Thumbs up.
Thank you.
I think that might not be bad.
Thank you.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea.
It definitely fills in, Richard, because it's so applicable to online. And I agree. This is
Yeah,
a good way.
it's the kind of thing, I'm looking at it this way, that you people see problem areas. And if enough people are talking about the same kind of problems, then let's get the expertise and let's get the experience that you people have to talk about it and discuss it so that everyone benefits from it. Okay, I'll work on it for next month. And if you agree, I would like to put down, let's talk about, let's see, first of all, if you agree that what we talk about are password manager programs and password security. That would be our topic. Let me write it down. Okay, because I use LastPass, but let me tell you something else if I can take another 30 seconds. As an old codger, I find it is getting more and more difficult to keep up with the various changes and the various technology changes that come along. I seem to be learning all the time and I can't keep up with it, but that doesn't mean that it should be ignored. It's got to be used and you got to learn the basics of it. And that's why I stick with just one, LastPass. I don't know if it's the best one, but it's very good for my purposes. And when I get stuck into an email or a password, in need of a password, I managed to find it in LastPass. It may take me 5 minutes where it would take somebody else 30 seconds. Sorry, but at my age, everything takes longer. And that's not a put down of old people.
If I might comment on the idea of topics, I think if in the course of discussing whatever it is, a plugin or requirement or problem or whatever, we hit upon a topic such as we have today where we kind of branch out and speak less about the technical aspects than about non-technical aspects. That's one thing. But to have a topic to discuss instead of doing what you do in a site clinic, which is address problems and issues and requirements, well, the two are kind of in conflict, right? I mean, the whole idea way back when, we actually started out the site clinic as just a segment of a 2-hour meetup, 30 to 60 minutes, 60 minutes at most. But what appealed strongly to Alex was the fact that he didn't have to prepare a presentation or find someone to do a presentation. So let's make the site clinic the whole meetup, right? So picking topics is kind of like going in the back door to that same idea. The group should do what it wants to do, for sure. But I think, though, figuring out a topic for, say, next month that will have general interest, but without a presentation or someone leading the discussion in some structured way, will become a bit problematic. Just suggesting.
Well, yeah, yes and no. You know what, Robin? If it's a general topic, I think the participation that I've seen so far in all of the 2 meetings I've been involved in, that there's plenty to be said without any one person actually making a presentation or anything. And I think we can generally share, and those that have a little more skill might end up having a little more to say, might have more to offer to the neophytes on a topic. So that's not a bad thing. I don't know that we really want to necessarily attribute a speaker per se, and I think that could be dangerous. Sorry, Richard.
No, that's okay. All I wanted to do was clarify what I said. I don't want to preempt what the purpose of this website or this site is. And I understood it to be, when I took on the role of moderator on a volunteer basis, I understood it to be a clinic repair site for WordPress people, okay, who had problems with their sites. Now, I still say, let's keep that clinic aspect alive, that it takes priority, that this is a repair problem site. And when we have that, everyone's going to learn from it. It's going to benefit us all. However, let's also then put in our on the shelf a topic for the month so that we can attract people to come into the site who would benefit from what we're discussing, because we have real pros here, and I'm not trying to be patronizing here, but there are really experienced people in here who have a significant contribution to make. I'm learning a lot, and other people would too. End of my story. Let me summarize it by this. This is a clinic first and a discussion center second.
Sure, makes sense.
Excuse me, but you can put a topic down to start off. You can call it a starting topic.
Or a topic to fall back on if we lag in dealing with health requirements.
Folks, I have to learn how I can post that somewhere, wherever it has to be posted, so people know a month ahead and we can attract people over the next couple of weeks. I don't know how to do that yet, but I'll learn. I'll find out.
It's on the Meetup page.
Perhaps people could
ask,
suggest
Stefanie a
topics in the comments.
Oh, sorry, Drew.
Drew, go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, perhaps people could suggest a topic in the comments of the Meetup page.
That's right.
Did you notice, Drew, that there were no comments this month?
I did notice.
Yeah.
But did you know that the page listing the attendees has the answers to the question when you RSVP'd, what help do you want? So I think without realizing what he's done, Alex or somebody has sort of screwed up that the use of comments to put down the notes that we got up till last month, right?
I didn't notice that in the attendees list.
No, you just click on the list click on the part that lists the people attending. You'll see which is a new page. When I saw there were no comments, I was surprised because I'd seen a comment somewhere and I was just trying to think, where did I see it? And it was because somebody's profile came up or the attendee page or whatever. And it kind of surprised me and made me stop and think.
Well,
Stefanie, I wanted to ask you a question. Stefanie?
Can I add something, Robin? Hang on just a sec. I'll need somebody to send me how I can post the topic for next month so that people are aware of what we possibly will be talking about. Okay? So I'm asking for some help here. Go ahead, Robin, you're next.
Yeah, Stefanie, I have a question. You seem on this Zoom call to be perfectly illuminated. What are you doing for a source of light? Do you have one of those round things that's on your machine or what? Because look how much better your complexion is than any of the rest of us.
It's true.
No, Phil's got a lot of color. What are you talking about?
Perhaps too much color, right? I would call that oversaturated.
I just blurred the background, and this is the lamp that's on right now. See this little night lamp?
Well,
otherwise it's dark in this room.
You're lucky because that's what people pay money to get, right? Like I have one of those little ring light things, which
you know what?
I'm going to tell large light over here. The main light would come from here, which works well, but is
Robin.
Have you ever tried working with a light shining in your face? No.
Listen, my wife chastises me for saying things like that. She says that's sexual harassment. Back away. Never mind commenting on
I think I'm okay, Stefanie.
No, I'm so glad he asked because she's right. Stefanie, you look great. And I'm thinking, and here I am. I feel like I'm sitting in the dark.
Yeah, Dale and I are both backlit. We're both backlit. My light's behind me.
I know.
And so I'm more or less. I got maybe color, but maybe that's.
You got more night.
I don't know. No, really, honestly, it's dark in front of me, and I'm in a corner, and it's a dark room.
You look terrible,
I
Phil.
was gonna suggest, Richard. So I attend some different talks on different forums, and one of them is a platform called Clubhouse. And I don't know if any of you have heard of it. It's a drop-in audio platform where people have the opportunity to host different rooms. And that's kind of how I think this Zoom call has been. It's kind of like an ask me anything. I have a problem to fix on my website. Like for me, my problem on my website is I got to figure out how to put in this plugin, right? Like which one should I use? So that's what's weighing me down right now. So I thought, well, let's see, there's going to be other people in this group who use WordPress, and maybe they have a solution for me. So that's similar to when I go to Clubhouse. They have topics, and sometimes it's like this, like a ask me anything, or how do I fix my XYZ, whatever, you name it. And sometimes people have predetermined topics. So like maybe, you know, the topics are around WordPress, and it's how do I optimize my site for search, or what plugins have people used to do X, or, you know, I have problems, like remember when Google changed and you had to have a API key so that the maps would work? Yeah. I'm sure everybody was stuck back then with that. Like, how the hell do I do this, right? So maybe there's topics that are very WordPress specific, like, or website specific, maybe I should say, but they should be WordPress specific, because you're not going to talk about how to fix something in Squarespace. Oh, I just lost my connection. But anyway, you can hear me audio. You're not talking about Squarespace or Wix or any of the other ones. You're just talking WordPress. So I don't know, that's just my 2 cents.
Stephanie, if I could comment back, based on my 2 months of moderating, I'm learning lots each time. And I saw that someone last month, they seemed to be belaboring the issue that they had, and they went on and on and on. And I cut them off eventually. But you notice that you didn't do that. You didn't belabor your issue. You got a couple of answers from Drew, from Robin, from Phil, and then I don't know if you made note of it, if you made notes about it, I don't know. But you just let it go, and you said to yourself, after this meeting, I'll have to go into it and dig a little more, but at least you got a lead. You got some ideas, and that's what I think we should be about. That we can't solve all the problems on here all the time, but we can open the door to ideas and inspire people to solutions. I think that's as good as we can count on. Okay, folks, it's 8 o'clock. I know that I'm cutting things off, but I want to cut things off while everything is so heated, because it means that you're active, you're energized, and you're interested. You've been marvelous tonight. I have to tell, each of you has done a great job on everything, and I thank you all. I'm going to close off the meeting, but I'll give everyone one last statement or one last comment. Starting, Robin, keep it short. Starting with you, Robin.
I'm okay. I'm talked out.
Everybody make notes. Okay, Phil, your turn. Last comment.
Okay, my only comment is going to go totally against what you're doing right now, because I think I'd like to become a co-host only so that those of us that want to stick around after 8 and still chat a little bit can, without feeling like all of a sudden it's done. And then, you know what I mean? Keep the social aspect. Like if we were sitting in a bar somewhere or in a comfy couch place, you could cut the meeting off, and then we could just chat and people could stick around, those that want to. Just a thought. Just a thought.
No, excellent idea. You are now the co-host, so you can carry on. Okay, but no, I like the idea, because some people may want to talk about it further. That's fine.
Let's put it this way, Phil. If you come next month, then that's easily arranged, but only if you go to your 3rd meetup, right?
Okay, wait. Okay, Dale, you want to say something before we go on? Robin, I cut you off. Dale, go ahead.
No, I just enjoyed tonight. Tonight was very good, and everybody was.
Glad to hear it. Okay, yeah, Drew, your turn.
Yeah, I just checked the meetup list and the list of attendees, and I do not see any comments that people have written there. And I think that only meeting organizers can see that.
Oh, hey, that's new to me, folks. Remember, I'm still trying to get my feet on the ground here.
That's on the attendees list anyway.
Yeah, you may be right, because I'm looking at it right now, and I can show you the page, but that's not the point. If you don't see it, then it's because
they didn't put any.
It is as you say.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think is, we should go back to the other way.
Okay.
Robin, sorry, go ahead.
Stephanie, hello, last comment.
I've just enjoyed the conversation this evening, and it was very interested to see how it morphed from WordPress over to privacy and all that stuff. And I apologize if I took you down that rabbit hole, but I think it was a great conversation to have. So thanks for hosting this room, Richard. I appreciate it, or the Zoom talk. Thank you.
And no apology necessary. The idea is to get people energized and interested and engaged. And I think we've done that, which is marvelous. Now I am saying good night, and I'm turning things over to my co-host, Phil. There you go, Phil. Good night, all.
Well, I'll keep the candle burning for as long as anybody wants to stick around. I just appreciate the input everybody has. And Stefanie, I don't think you led anyone down any path. I think we just naturally went there. So, Drew, you started to say, can I ask, Drew, you mentioned something or started to say something when I was talking about how kind of public and unprivate my life is. And you said something about being careful or something, but I think you got cut off.
Oh, no, I think that was, I was starting to make the comment about being careful about looking up your symptoms on Google.
Oh, okay.
And finding the disease with the best SEO.
Yeah, the disease with the best SEO. That's exactly it.
So if they find out, what are they going to do with that?
Well, see,
this makes no sense at all. Like, you know,
I can tell you
an example that's become part of internet, the web's history, is that some teenager Googled a pregnancy test question, the result of which was that her account was bombarded with pregnancy-related material, which her parents were very unhappy to see. And so therefore that invasion of her privacy brought about by this influx of pregnancy-related material was like not only embarrassing, but I mean, was harmful to her. And so that's just the sort of archetype of the potential problem that exists. Let's say you Google something about cancer, and now it turns up in your employee annual review that the insurers queried a pre-existing condition that they weren't aware of before. Does Joe Blow actually have cancer of the liver or something?
Then I would definitely talk to my boss and say maybe they should get rid of them.
Find out why they're giving you this problem, because they don't disclose the source of the information.
Yeah, well, then I would also
horror stories.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, if that happens, you go to your boss and say, "Hey, we got people that are doing this. Let's change over our suppliers." Come on, this is, you know, like, well, in other words, you said because they went and found, and these other people were doing it that were connected to the company. Get rid of them.
No,
they're obviously not doing their job.
Google, as a matter of standard practice, they sell to advertisers this kind and quality of information as the core of their business model.
Well, yeah,
this is what Google and Facebook are about.
I search for all kinds of things. My friends have disease, like, you do all kinds of searches, whatever. I don't get that. So I'm trying to figure out how that happens. And if someone...
Sorry, go ahead, Phil.
I was going to say, let me throw in one more red herring into this. In a more malicious or nasty way, your information can be misused against you or can be used against you, is when you start getting emails that target you, that make you want to click. It's called clickbait. Or not just emails, but things can pop up in your searches. When you go to search something and somebody wants to target you, then they start putting things out on the web that meets the criteria that you're looking for, knowing that you might click on it because it's something that you're interested in. And if it's something where it's a health matter, we sort of take that to heart more. And unfortunately, in doing so, it also opens us up to be more vulnerable, because as soon as you start looking for something that is a vulnerability, you're inevitably in your mind somewhat vulnerable to what you read and see. And the danger then becomes if somebody uses that against you by social engineering, it's called, where someone acts like a doctor, let's say, answering a question, a totally inane question that you're asking on the internet, and all of a sudden it piques your interest, and now you're engaging with someone and sharing it, maybe more information, that then becomes a buildup of information that gives them enough to eventually steal your identity, for instance, on a very extreme case. But there are so many times where information we share online can and very easily be used against us without our knowing, only because what we put out there is, as Robin's saying, so readily available to those that know where to look and how to find it.
I tell my older brother who lives in England that emailing one another is just like publishing the email on a billboard on a busy street. There is no privacy in email, no matter what people may say, unless you're paying for encrypted email, like heavyweight stuff, which is quite a pain. Your email is public, and therefore anything you say, everything you say is just grist for Google processing away and selling it out the back door as quick as it can, for which they're continually being fined, but to no real result. One of my problems, Phil, is that I got involved in the internet early enough to have what seems to be an incredibly popular name. In other words, a first name plus my last name's first initial. And that means that I get around 100 emails a month of people, for one reason or another, using my email address, thinking that a dot or something, some minor thing that they add to it changes it, but it comes to me. You know, it's subscriptions, it's bank account information, it's car renewals, it's notices for this and sales for that. So yes, it's a pain in the neck and, you know, to have to clean this crap up all the time. But the more important point is that there's all these emails out there with my address on them that have nothing to do with me, that I didn't choose to use my address and be associated with that vendor or that organization or that movement or whatever. But the profiles that advertisers and others build up will contain all these fake references, right? That the people who created them didn't do it to screw me. They thought that this somehow they could use this address. You know, like why they thought that, I don't know. They do it with such regularity, it's ridiculous. But that's another aspect of sort of identity management that we rarely talk about, but that when you think about it, well, at least when I think about it, I sort of curse the fact that there doesn't seem to be a way to make any money from being more private. You know, in other words, offer services that will enhance your digital identity in the sense of secure and reputation managed and all that sort of stuff. Doesn't seem to be, at least in my way of thinking, kind of an easy, straightforward market for that.
Yeah, about 30 years ago, the world's post office has missed a great opportunity to get into the business of secure, properly authenticated email.
Yeah.
You know, they could have run it securely with decent authentication so that you know who you're talking to. You could, you know, sign a contract online and stuff like that, but they were stuck in the past.
Yeah, I remember something about that. And you're right, Robin. I don't think about it, and I never really put it to mind the way you said it, but you said it very well. Emails are not private, and that's one thing that I'm sure most people don't get, and it is true, because
I have an account.
Very few. I don't even know if anyone has. Does anyone even know of any real secure, encrypted email other than through your own company?
No, it's there's an outfit. There are a variety of providers, as is always the case on the internet, but the one that I'm familiar with is called Proton Email.
Oh yeah.
And you can have a free account.
Yep.
You know, it has limitations being free, but none of those limitations are related to their use of any data. They don't know or care who you are, and therefore you don't need to disclose your identity to get an account. And it is encrypted so that, I mean, it's industrial grade, enterprise grade security, according to the security experts that I trust. But it's just inconvenient as hell, because it's like, you know, Joe Blow at protonemail.com. You know, a domain name you have to pay for. Upgraded features you have to pay for. VPN you have to pay for. But then what do you get for free that's actually really free?
Okay, this Proton, I got approached by a woman I know in Ottawa, very strange one. And this right wing, I mean, scary group has started up in Proton, and she wanted me to help with their website. So I figured if you want to pay Proton, don't ask me the name of the place. Anyways, but I figured I might help
Proton
her.
Mail, sorry.
I know it's Proton Mail. I know, but I did not heard of Proton. This woman calls me. She wants me to help her with the thing. You have to have Proton Mail because it's secure, blah, blah, blah. And these people that were making this website were scary. They were just so, whoa, scary. But I thought if they want to give me a lot of money, as long as my name's not on it, I'll take it. But after a very short while, I thought, no, this is scary people. This is, like this makes the KKK look good. So I thought I'm not going to do that. So I backed off. But yes, I do have a Proton Mail. But it was just like, this is the best security and you're going to have this. It was just too much. They're going to do this. They're going to do this. I don't trust that. I don't trust when they come on, they're going to be absolutely the best and this, and you don't have to worry about it. Whoa, 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 Yeah,
but that's why you should find somebody. I've got a couple of guys that over the years, coming out of the PC world and enterprise stuff, these were the guys with the major credibility. And as a result, when they say, this is good, I checked it out, I can recommend it. As far as I'm concerned, that's go to the bank with that. But there are very few, and I followed this guy for 5 years before I actually decided that he could be trusted pretty much straightforwardly. Steve Gibson is his name. And if you Google him or go to his website, in addition to providing recommendations and analyses of things of interest, is that he has had a bunch of free tools that are security related and very helpful, free. So, he's a good guy.
Yeah, I haven't used this Proton email because I got a sixth sense when it comes to certain stuff. I don't know if anybody else has that here. When you get into situations and you're dealing with people, my little sixth sense gets off and it's yes or no. It's not good or it's good. And I started having these feelings and I thought, nope, I'm backing off. So I haven't used the Proton now. I backed out of that. So I don't know, maybe my sixth sense is wrong this time and it's really good, who knows?
Here's the guy that I was referring to.
Yeah, I just finished looking up this guy. I think Proton Up, from what I've heard, is probably one of the better ones out there. And unfortunately, as it is a good one, you're probably right, Dale. It also attracts a lot of bad people or people that might be a little bit iffy because they see the anonymity and the security of it. And they want to take advantage of that like everyone else. They don't want to be tracked. So in the same token that you go, well, don't like these guys, should I even trust the email they're using? Well, that's just one case where I think the email they're using, Proton, is actually a very good and secure format. I remember reading about it before and researching it. I'd forgotten that it exists out there, but I don't use it only because I have to use other ones.
Well, there's also the enormous pain that I anticipate trying to move from Gmail. And I think I probably got, 400 or 500 folders or tags and maybe 250,000 emails.
Oh.
So, I moved to Outlook.
I'm still using
I got a lifetime subscription to Microsoft Office.
I'm still using Eudora.
Wow. Nothing wrong with that. I think that's pretty secure in some cases. Eudora, is that Linux based or?
No, it was made by, they know haven't been made anything since the 90s. So, late 90s. And, but I paid the whole $7.
It memory serves me.
What?
That I remember getting an update at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night, having a problem immediately. For some reason, feeling the initiative, so I emailed the developer because it was, freeware. He made a fix and emailed me back an hour later And I just thought, wow, like this is, 200,000 customers or users of this product, whatever it is. And here I just, tried it out, had a problem, talked to the guy, bingo, the next thing you know, it's like fixed.
Well, I paid $7 or $8. I spent $7 or $8 and got the Pro, the one that was paid for. And it shouldn't, every time I update Windows, I keep thinking it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. This is silly. And it works and it just keeps going. But then there's Mozilla, whatever it is there.
Firefox?
Not Firefox, but it's an email. Thank you. And that's, they've taken over. They tried to copy Eudora. So they've made it very similar to that. And I think they even have it so that you can copy your stuff there. But I cannot believe the thing still works. So that still fascinates me. I just...
Every now and again, I come across a customer, and when I ask for their email and they tell me, and I go, oh my goodness, you're dating yourself. I had one yesterday, AOL.com. I'm going, whoever used AOL, that's like when they used to mail out free, get in your mail, you get the free little disc and you could get the free AOL, web server or whatever. That goes way back.
I feel that way about people with Facebook pages.
Do you?
I see that there's advertising and so on, but I think that if you make your living through advertising on Facebook, then you're part of the whole surveillance economy, and that just offends me. And you know what? I think it'll be short-lived. I think 3 to 5 years from now, surveillance will be back again in the hands of the criminals and the government, and corporations will be more or less, I hope, out of it.
Well, one thing about Facebook and that is if somebody dies, you can't get them off of Facebook. No, seriously.
True. You can get them off.
No, I tried. I've got 2 people that are dead, and I've tried everything, and they will not take them off.
No, you can't. Someone who has access to their account can.
You have to have power. Well, you have to be either in the will and have the death certificate, or before that have power of attorney, because.
No, I don't. I didn't have that. My aunt, there was one for her. She died a few years ago. I have a half brother. He died, but there's no way that they're still there. There's a woman I know too. There's 3 or 4 that still have accounts there that, I've sent them all the information. They can check it up, blah, 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 blah. No, they will not pay attention.
But are you the person that is the estate trustee?
No.
It has to be the estate trustee.
Which is a good thing, right? I mean,
at one time, estate trustee.
A person's account changed in a basic way without a legal authorization. And how do they know?
Right.
Unless you send them the body.
My aunt was about 90 some odd. She didn't even know how to do email.
You have to send in the death certificate and everything, and you have to.
Well, I sent information where they could see it in the newspaper. I sent them all the stuff. It's easy to find out, and if they could find out the person's dead,
Yeah, that won't cut it. You literally have to send them a copy of the will and the death certificate.
And even then, I think you probably still need to prove that you're a person that has some sort of legal ability.
Yes.
Google won't shut.
Well, usually the will.
Yeah, but Google won't.
Yeah, but the problem is lately I've noticed some people some people in families are a little greedy and not nice, and they will grab will and they will take over and they do not nice, which is unfortunate.
It is.
And that's been happening a lot more in the last, I would say 10 or 10 years that I've seen ever before. I don't know what's going on.
Wasn't there a point when you couldn't delete a Facebook account for the purposes of them having your data and using it for advertising?
I think there was a point where they were reluctant you could have it, but it's like the Hotel California. You could check out, but you could never leave.
or the deals you get on newspaper subscriptions online, where they're incredibly good rates, but when your trial is over and you want to cancel, it can only be done by phone. They will not put an online form on, and that is so they can pitch you on continuing, right? So that's just one of the many practices which are clearly against our interests.
No, I noticed. I have about 3 or 4 different people that are still on my list that are dead. But,
well, Dale, you got to figure out, though, you got to understand this fundamental point that you can't act in someone's name unless you have legal authorization. And the only authorization that somebody with a brain will accept is something in writing in a proper form, delivered in an appropriate way. Anything other than that is silly. I mean, why don't I take
I've been learning a lot about this business
and just send off, a death certificate that I can make up on.
Yeah, it used to be very simple. You got a certificate, you got the things, and you know what I mean. It was all done, and now not so simple.
Well, yeah, but Dale, think about it. If I printed off a death certificate and said that you're dead and closed your Facebook account on you, just because I'm an interested party and I don't have a legal right to do so, I think you'd be a little offended. And how does Google know whether it's legit?
No, yeah, I know. I understand that, but let's see, the one of my brother there, the thing was in the newspaper. I could give them the thing for the
that could be spoofed
endlessly.
That could be spoofed.
Something being in the newspaper, God, have we not realized by now that appearing in the newspaper means absolutely nothing?
Yeah, but I also had other.
I mean, it's not like it was in the newspaper. No. What does that mean? Well, that it's in the newspaper.
Well, it's put in the newspaper by the people that bury them, whatever the hell they call them. And so all that was there, so you could go and I had everything so they could go boom, boom, boom if they wanted to. But I didn't, after my aunt and the whole thing with that, I just didn't even bother because I know that it doesn't matter. I've got 3 or 4 people, they're dead, but.
Yeah, but Dale, they're not going to act on any of that information unless you legally have the right to say that.
Well,
if you're not mentioned as executor,
you cannot carry out.
But you can't find who's
baffles me. I mean, why accept the responsibility to do something when you have no reason to believe it'll work other than it used to work?
Well, I didn't know it. I didn't know that it didn't work.
You know it now.
Yeah, I do. So I don't bother now.
Okay, so let's drop that. Let's drop that because let's face it. Yeah, I agree, Robin. I mean, at this point, let's be honest. You're not going to get Facebook to change something just because you would like them to, and you'd like them to do their due diligence and check to see if someone exists or doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And there's so many fake accounts out there already in Facebook. I mean, I could list you 3 or 4 accounts that are fake accounts that I personally started because I was doing the stupid thing, playing Farmville, and I wanted to get more little things or play my game better. So I got a bunch more accounts so I could feed myself. and to be honest with you, those accounts, Dale, they're going to exist forever. And if Google really wanted to check, they ought to see that I leaned over isn't a real person. I mean, I use the stupidest names, like, really. Yeah, I leaned over, or I don't even remember all the ones I used, but that was my favorite. It's like that was from a bad joke, fell off the cliff by I leaned over.
Well, can you imagine how much money rides on the statistics for the social media companies as to their number of users, number of new accounts, total time of engagement, and so on, when anywhere from, 5% to 60% are bots, not real people. And from an advertiser's point of view, it was long understood that half of the ads that go out are fraudulent. The clicks on them are fraudulently generated. So advertisers took that into account, and priced accordingly in their way of thinking. But if the whole enterprise itself is just fundamentally on shaky ground because of no one's proving their identity, and you can create as many accounts as you've got time and energy to run the programs that automatically create them, right? Thousands and thousands of accounts for the social media companies that manipulate social media. They have endless accounts that create them in the thousands, and they get canceled in the millions, right? So this is something which that part of the internet, both the people who exploit it, the people who try to police it, spend a lot of money and time on, and we don't get involved in. But it's a big deal.
It absolutely is, and that's what drives Facebook and those places to keep those things alive. They won't let it go for exactly what you said.
Well, and that's what the Wall Street Journal series called The Facebook Files is so interesting, because it seems quite conclusive that Facebook sort of sat down in a conscious way, decided that in order to achieve the maximum engagement, because that produced the maximum profits, they would just have to take a few casualties on the way. And teenage girls were one of the casualties. Okay, so they hate themselves, but they'll be engaged. Okay, approved. And they have this in emails and discussion papers and so on that these guys sent to one another about, well, gee, you know, our research shows that people are really become unhappy and then they commit suicide because of the way our algorithm, you know, feeds them hate and misinformation and deceptive stuff and fraudulent materials and so on. It's just unfortunate they're our best paying customers. Okay, well, so, you know, let the data scientists come up with some excuse for why we can't do this, or what we tried, but it failed. You know, we'll try harder next year when we go before Congress to explain why we have another catastrophe on our hands. And then, so Facebook got away with that, what, 5 or 6 years annually, going once a year. We're sorry, we screwed up. You know, we did everything wrong that we weren't supposed to, but we're really going to do better now. I'm sure of it. Year one.
But I must be the only one
that year 3, etc.
I support Facebook because over the years and that sort of stuff, I had some neighbors and whatever that died. And there was a friend of my ex's, and they had a couple of kids, and he died. And then the week later, his wife committed suicide, and they were native Aborigines, and but the kids were going to be taken care of. But we split up, and you lose, you know, I'm not there anymore, and you lose things when everybody split. I split up with my ex, and so, you know, this sort of stuff. And neighbors that I had up there, again.
Gail,
yeah, and guess what?
Check out a service called Nextdoor.
No, it's okay. It's okay. What's happened is they found me.
Which is a Facebook at the neighborhood level.
No, I don't want
which
that.
I've actually found to be quite interesting. That relates to my little neighborhood of, you know.
Oh yeah, I know, but no. The thing is, they're not
what Facebook originally offered was a sense of community amongst people that you knew or were part of a network, right?
No.
Guys, hang on a second. Robin, Dale, Stephanie's got her hand up. Go ahead, Steph.
Okay.
Oh, hang on, you're not unmuted. We don't hear you. Sorry. Go ahead, start again.
I'm there.
Yeah, there you go.
I just want to say, as an awesome conversation, I have to leave, but I want to remind you, this is being recorded. So all the information that you're sharing about right now, all this personal stuff is being recorded. So
I know,
you
what
may
I was trying
to just...
No. This is
I just want to let you know.
Oh, I know. No.
Okay.
And the thing is with the Facebook, I got tracked down by people I'd known over the years. Their kids tracked me down. And so, and they're doing so well, and everybody is so, and my friend said, that's really strange. I said, yeah, but they knew me then, and they were with their parents then, and they knew, and so I'm still fine. So, hey, they really were there. And so I've had more kids track me down, and I have no idea why. So on Facebook, so go figure that one. But I think it's because we were all together at one time years ago, like their family and mine. And I think it gives them, you know, they remember what it was like. And I think a lot of people are doing that on Facebook, that they'll talk about it.
That could be.
Right.
But Stephanie, that was a good point. Thanks. That's a very good point. We do have to be careful about that.
No problem. Okay. Well, have a wonderful evening, everyone. And
see you next month.
Okay.
Next month.
This was great.
Okay,
next month.
bye.
Take care, everybody.
Next month, yeah.
Okay.
You guys can still talk. I just have to go.
No, I got to get out of here too. So I got to go too, but I don't know how to get out of here. Do I hit leave?
Bottom right is leave.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll see you guys next month. This has been great. Absolutely. Appreciate it. But made my night. Okay. Goodbye. Let's see if this works.
So,
hey, Drew, can I ask you a question? What do you do?
I'm a website developer, and I do IT support. So IT network, operating systems, that sort of thing.
for more than one
Drew's
company, for
name
one
is
company?
quite helpful.
Yeah.
Drew, what's your company name?
The company is called Almost Painless Computing.
Oh, okay.
Isn't that a good name?
It is. That's a really good name. In fact,
Yeah.
it doesn't leave anything for imagination.
Later.
It doesn't tell you it's going to be painless, just almost painless.
Yes. It also tends to alphabetize higher on lists than painless computing would.
Yeah, I guess it would.
A lot of listings just are just straight dumb alphabetical lists rather than any kind of categorization. Anyway, Phil, it's been great. I'm afraid I also have to go. So
but thank you.
Hopefully see you next month.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
Okay.
Looking forward to it. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.